Super Editions are the longest of the Warrior Cats books, so they deserve the most scrutiny. If a book is boring or pointless, it being 450 pages is a real bummer. So let's rank the Super Editions to decide which ones are actually worth your time. There will be some spoilers in this video, but I'll try to avoid most of the super major ones. Let's begin. Number 17, One Star's Confession. The Pole Super Editions is the absolute worst era. It kind of shows a lack of confidence when such important decisions for a massive book series are left to a fan vote. They ended up making books for both second and first place on both polls. One Star was second, so not even the fans really wanted a book about him. And the result was, in my opinion, the worst Super Edition. All the big reveals from this book were already spelled out for us in One Star's PowerPoint presentation back in Shattered Sky. The book mainly consists of them slowly recapping Warrior Cats from One Star's perspective, and then the one actual cool thing about him, the Eclipse battle, they completely skip over and pretend didn't happen. And One Star is made to be the most unlikable protagonist ever. He completely abandons his mate and Kit because they are too embarrassing for him, and he found a more convenient mate who used to be his apprentice. And then the ultimate message this book takes is that he shouldn't blame himself for Darktail being evil, just completely forgetting the female characters exist, and that, I don't know, maybe he should blame himself for making extreme mistakes. I have a longer video on the subject, but Whitetail and Smoke are two of the worst treated characters in the entire series. And as I was working on this video, a Darktail Super Edition was announced, making One Star's story even more pointless. Number 16, River Star's Home. Everyone who voted for River Star to get a Super Edition desperately wanted a new story in the Dawn of the Clans time period after Mothlight's vision. Instead, we got half the book recapping events from Dawn of the Clans, and the other half being a mix of traveling and forcing a tie-in to the A Starless Clan arc. The coldest quote from Dawn of the Clans River Star was recontextualized as something he immediately regretted in this book, and I think that about sums up how soft this book is. And the ending is the absolute worst because they rehash Slash from Dawn of the Clans just to not do anything interesting with him. And then they over-dramatize this decision where Riverstar has to choose between his mate and his clan, only for that decision to not matter at all based on what happens at the end. Okay. Number 15, Leopard Star's Honor. Sunfish is cute. There, the book is better than Riverstar's Home now. Anyway, I consider this book to be the most rushed in Warrior Cats history, due to a really short time frame between a poll result and the book's release, as well as some events in the book literally happening out of sequence because the editor missed it. And the story is mostly a recap of Prophecies Begin that refuses to own up to the fact that Leopard Star is a little evil, despite the fact that Warrior Cats fans would have adored that. They love evil she-cats. The only substantial new content is Leopard Star's childhood upbringing as a drypaw, and I mean, it's fine. As I said, I like Sunfish. Not so much Frogleap, who had a ridiculously forced crush on Leopard Fur, and a rather rushed conclusion to his character arc. Number 14, Yellowfang's Secret. We had a whole entire Super Edition to explain why Broken Star became evil, and they landed on the fact that it was because SkyClan was banished several generations ago, and a supernatural force just got around to punishing the clans now. Not kidding. SkyClan had nothing to do with any of the Super Edition's plot, and is only in the prologue. What were they thinking? Giving Yellowfang a power didn't even add anything other than an excuse to force her to become a medicine cat, and all of Broken Star's evil deeds being very easily preventable yet forced to happen because Warrior Cats has to happen, leads to an extremely unsatisfying conclusion to this book. This story probably should have stayed a mystery. The only credit I give this book is that prequel Shadow Clan is good world building, especially learning the past of cats like Russellfur. If this book didn't happen, then people probably would be asking for it. Number 13, Bramblestar's Storm. Back when Dawn of the Clans was releasing, this book was a much needed revisiting of the fan favorite characters, and it was genuinely exciting to find out what happened to everyone. But now that a Vision of Shadows exists, who really cares? Bramblestar finding out about SkyClan suddenly has so little impact when there's an entire arc about it now, and literally everyone knows. And introducing Jesse to confuse Bramblestar romantically, when the last hope was supposed to solidify that he was repairing his relationship with Squirrelflight, was odd. and all the flooding, while being a good source of conflict, never quite reached a critical level of danger to make things exciting. Just cats slowly moving out of camp and exploring around. If you really want Bramblestar and Squirrelflight content, then Squirrelflight's Hope is the way to go. There's just so much more at stake in that book. Number 12, Mothflight's Vision. Mothflight definitely has her share of fans. I'm not the biggest one. I do appreciate she is ADHD representation. Especially towards the beginning, you can really feel for her struggle and unfair treatment. But by the time we meet Micah, we kinda lose the plot a little. The writers forget about her ADHD for most of the book. And then after she has to care for her kits, they force other cats to be needlessly unhelpful in order to force the conclusion at the end with her not wanting her kits and creating the Medicine Cat Code. The story was trying to cram in both the creation of medicine cats and the medicine cats can't have kits rule into one story when they really should have slowed things down and gave Mothflight's mental health and family drama more focus. Number 11, SkyClan's Destiny. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be this high either. A more accurate title would be The Miscellaneous Adventures of SkyClan, because oh boy, this book has zero focus. It is a glorified filler collection. And when it does focus on central conflicts, it's all just bullying Leafstar for wanting kits, or for wanting cats to respect her authority as leader. And at the end, Sharpclaw frames all their constant fighting as healthy disagreements that are there to make her a stronger leader. And like, no Sharpclaw, you're just mean. The book doesn't even give him any valid reasons to hate Daylight Warriors so much. And don't get me started on Stick, who has this whole conflict with his daughter that is unceremoniously brushed to the side at the end of the book, despite all the implications of a major plot event that happens to them. And then there's Shrewtooth. He's so undeniably perfect. Yeah, there's actually a good part to this. Shrewtooth is one of my favorite Warrior Cats characters. His story is a realistic depiction of PTSD, and my favorite example of Warrior Cats attempting mental health representation. So yes, Shrewtooth has made this book jump up several spots. Number 10, Graystripe's Vow. Okay, I think we're finally getting to the part of the list where the books are fine. Graystripe's Vow isn't a spectacular masterpiece, but it does introduce the most silly and best part of modern Warrior Cats lore, Warrior Clan, the kitty pets who roleplay as Warrior Cats. Them alone just boost this book up so much. Warrior Cats, and most media if I'm being honest, really benefit when they have a chance to just be silly, having a good time and not really pretending to be this profound story, and that is Warrior Clan. The conflict of Graystripe trying to refine StarClan was engaging enough, as I was heavily invested in that while reading the Broken Code. The flashback section is quite a bit less memorable, but I appreciate the experimentation, and Gremlin was a cool character and a nice addition to BloodClan lore. Number 9, Firestar's Quest. This book does have its moments where it drags on with filler, there's a fair share of traveling, and the Sandstorm Firestar love drama can be a little forced. But I have to give credit to two things. A Secret Fifth Clan was the coolest thing ever at the time this book was released. The Warrior Cats team definitely knows this because all these years later they're trying to add another brand new secret clan. And secondly, the rats. Having a fat master rat that controls other rats with taps and leads raids to attack the cats, that's crazy. They put Firestar in a barn full of rats. This book isn't amazing now that journeys have been done so many times, but back then it was pretty solid, and even now it holds an important place in Warrior Cats lore, being the rebuilding of SkyClan. Number 8, Crowfeather's Trial. This pick mainly comes down to me liking Crowfeather and Nightcloud. The conclusion their relationship comes to is something that Warrior Cats really doesn't do often, and it's a very different take on a romance plot. And overall, I feel like the story has a much needed place in the Warrior Cats timeline, exploring how Dark Forest trainees are able to reintegrate into their clans. The Stoats conflict isn't groundbreaking, but it is something to keep the stakes up. The book answers a lot of much needed questions about Crowfeather and all the relationships he's had. It's a good book. Number 7, Ivypool's Heart. The newest Super Edition as I'm making this video. On one hand, this book is great for introducing a lot of new things to Warrior Cats, from the Wildcats, to Galestar and her long history, to the fate of Bristlefrost and what that means for all Spirit Cats. And among traveling books, it's one of the less boring ones, and it gives Icewing much needed development, which is kind of important considering her future. It's a shame Galestar spoiled the entirety of her upcoming Super Edition in a PowerPoint presentation though. It's 1 star all over again. Number 6. Tigerheart Shadow. At the time I was just really invested in the Tigerheart-Devling relationship, and this book is fully dedicated to telling the story of them and their kits. I think it does a good job of giving Devling her own agency and her going on a journey even though Tigerheart disagreed, and I think adding trains and a church to the Two-Leg world were both great additions, and Spire is a wonderfully weird individual. Unfortunately, the other Guardian cats are quite forgettable. Some of this book, especially the ending with the owl, can feel a little wacky, but I think wacky is good for warrior cats. Number 5. Squirrelflight's Hope. If you're tired of Squirrelflight fighting with Bramblestar in the main series, this book is going to be awful for you. But I have to give this book credit simply for the fact that stuff actually happens in this book. Sure, a lot of the time cats, and especially Bramblestar, ignore easy solutions or basic patience to inorganically drive the conflict, but at least there is a strong central conflict in this book. That can't be said about most Super Editions. And we get a couple of very major lore additions, such as the Sisters, and a peek into StarClan with the trial system, as well as a major character death. So this one is not really one you should skip if you're invested in the Warrior Cats universe. You'll hate Bramblestar, but you will not be bored with this one. Number 4. Bluestar's Prophecy. One of the fan favorite Super Editions. With Forest of Secrets making her past seem like this grand important thing, this was a story begging to be written, and it does the job. The format of backstory of a cat you know, with a bunch of time skips, does eventually get tired, as you can tell with my bottom 4, but this is the first of its kind and the best execution of the format, because they actually do a really good job of introducing side characters who actually matter. Goosefeather, Snowfur, Thistleclaw, Pinestar, Threshpelt, Hawkheart, love 'em or hate 'em, all iconic characters. We even get a Scourge appearance. The events of this book are so important, we get 4 separate novella spin-offs from the ThunderClan time period established in this book. This is not a perfect book, but its flaws are very easy to overlook when you see all the characters it introduces to the Warrior Cats universe. Number 3. Crooked Star's Promise. Mapleshade. Do I even have to elaborate further? Mapleshade is a top 3 most iconic villain of Warrior Cats, and aside from her novella, this is her primary place to shine. I do feel like this book kills a few too many cats for the emotional impact to land every time, but what does land is that I love the mystery of Mapleshade and whether or not she is really responsible. And then there's Rainflower. Knowing Crooked Star saw Mapleshade as a better mother figure tells you everything you need to know about her. She's so unapologetically nasty, which is a great driver of conflict, and they allow her to be morally complex without forcing a redemption arc, because redemption just wouldn't fit her character. So you get a good mix of hating her, while also wondering how she got to be so twisted. Oh, and Crooked Star is in this book too, I guess. Number 2, Hawkwing's Journey. So the other 3 Super Editions in my top 4 are very much the most popular ones, so that would make Hawkwing's Journey my wildcard pick. And my reasoning is that stuff just happens in this book. It's very high stakes with SkyClan cats dropping like flies. It's a much needed backstory for any of Vision of Shadows readers, and I think out of all the Super Editions that directly tie into a main arc and sort of force you to read it to know the full story, this one connects the most seamlessly and feels the least like a chore to read. Darktail is downright evil. His chaos always keeps you on the edge of your seat, and even when we leave him behind, the journey has so much to throw at us. It's basically the opposite of SkyClan's Destiny, where instead of random inconsequential things filling the book, pretty much everything that happens leads to some consequence, usually a cat dying or being separated from the group in some way. Number 1, Tall Star's Revenge. So, to the surprise of no one who has read this book, yes, I am picking Tall Star's Revenge as my favorite. It has such a strong central conflict, with Tall Star wanting to avenge the death of someone. It's got brand new Wind Clan lore with the Tunneler cats, and the decision to eventually move away from that lifestyle. Both his parents are really complicated characters, and it's really interesting seeing how they impact Tall Star. And of course we get Jake. The only minor issue is that there is a stretch of chapters after the main conflict is resolved that don't really connect to the rest of the story all that well. But overall, if you're going to read a Super Edition, and if you have any interest in Wing Quinn at all, you should definitely pick up this book. And that concludes the list. If you disagree with anything, that's totally valid. Everyone has different things that make stories more appealing to them. That's what the comment section is for. Alright, bye everyone!